Hello everybody, it's the Warhipster here, coming at you with another Contrast Plus painting tutorial, and today we are painting the magnificent new Lord Invocatus for the World Eaters. Yes, here he is. What a fantastic special piece of kit this is. I think it's amazing. This one can be built as the optional Lord on Juggernaut, but of course we had to do it as the Lord Invocatus because he's really cool. So, he's been sent to me early by Games Workshop, so a massive thank you to them, and I'm really excited to paint this. He's been primed in Wraithbone. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the Juggernaut itself. So we're going to paint up the Juggernaut and get him all finished, and then we're going to paint the Lord Invocatus himself. So this tutorial kind of breaks down into sort of two parts. So, Wraithbone, as already mentioned, what we're going to do is we're going to start by taking some Black Legion, and we're going to apply this over the top of all of the Juggernaut's armor and all of the black details. And there's a bunch of these, most of the arm model itself. I'm just going to start here at the head and then work my way back. Things to be aware of will be stuff like any bits that are going to be silver, such as these teeth here. It doesn't matter if you do get the Black Legion on them, but it does make it a little bit easier if you don't, because then you can just pick it out that little bit later and don't forget them, because, well, there's a lot of things that could be forgotten on this model. Just take your time, work your way around, and then once that's done, we shall return. So with that Black Legion all applied, all the way around, as you can see, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Iron Warriors. We're going to apply this over, well, the majority of the remaining details. What we're not looking for is any of the kind of trim and decoration. So there's things like the brass collar, for example, and we're not looking to paint that in, but areas such as this chainmail just here, mechanical areas of the Juggernaut. The hooves, the chainsaw blades, and the casing of the chainsaw itself. We're going to be applying this all over, just as I am right here. So with all of that Iron Warriors now applied, what we're going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Runelord Brass, and we're going to apply this over pretty much all of our remaining details on the Juggernaut, excluding the sigils on the armor here, 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 and here. So with all of that Runelord Brass now applied, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Gryph-Hound Orange and we're going to apply this over the top of these sigils. So with that now done, what we're going to do is we're going to add some shades. Now, the first one we're going to add is Nuln Oil. I'm going to apply this over the top of all the black, all the silver, and all of the Runelord Brass. So just almost a full shading over the top of the whole model. So the only part we're not really shading is going to be, of course, those sigils. So with that Nuln Oil all applied, what we then do is we take some Agrax Earthshade and we apply this over the top of the Runelord Brass. And so with that Agrax Earthshade applied, we then take our last shade, which is going to be Targor Rageshade, and we're going to just apply this over the chainmail, the blades, and the hooves. So with that done, the Juggernaut is now what I would call a Warhipster battle ready, and it's looking all right. But what we're going to do is we're going to take it to the next level by adding some highlights. But before we do the highlights, we've got one relayer to do, and that is going to be some thinned down Runelord Brass. Now we're just going to be doing this in 4 places. So what we're going to do is we're going to relayer this Runelord Brass over this kind of spike on the head bit. This one just here, like that. This one here. Like that. And this one here, like that. And then additionally, over the top here of the armor, and over the top here. So with that Runelord Brass applied, we can now get on with the highlighting proper. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with all the black. And what we're going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Dawnstone, and we're going to use this now to pick out all of the edges and all of the rivets. So with that Dawnstone all applied, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Magmadroth Flame and we're going to apply this over the top of the sigils. And what we're going to do as well with this is we're going to get it all over like that. And then we're just going to very carefully overlap the sigils like that sort of thing. Just give us a little bit of a hint of orange. On the black. So with that Magmadroth Flame applied, we're then going to take some Troll Slayer Orange and we're going to thin it down with sort of 4 or 5 parts water. And we're going to essentially do a line highlight, but a recess shade. That's probably the more accurate term. It's going to be really, really, really thin and really, really runny. And what we're going to do is we're going to do this around the outside of the sigils. And so with that now done, what we're going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Screaming Skull and we're going to use this to highlight the sigils. It's going to look quite stark, but don't worry, it's exactly what we're after. And so with that Screaming Skull applied, just to finish it off, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Casandora Yellow and we're going to apply this over the top. Just like this. So with those sigils now done all the way around, as you can see, they look bright and shiny. What we're going to do now is we're going to finish off the black, and what we're going to do is we're going to take some Administratum Grey. We're going to use this to pick out the sharpest corners. And the rivets. So with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Canoptek Alloy and we're going to use this to highlight all of the brass. And so with that Canoptek Alloy applied to all of the Runelord Brass areas, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Iron Hand Steel. I'm going to apply this as a highlight to all of the silver. Like that sort of thing. However, one point of order is that on the blade, we're just going to apply iron hand steel over the top of the cutting edge, like that. And we're going to do the same thing on this one as well. And so, with our iron hand steel applied, we then take some Ironbreaker. We use this to highlight the really sharp edge of the blade, like that. And we can also use this to add a little bit more sharpness to the chain blade. Like so. So with that now done, the Juggernaut is pretty much finished. There's a couple of little bits of like weathering and stuff that we can do a little bit later on, but for now we're going to leave it there. So we're going to move on now to painting Lord Invocatus, and the colour we're going to be using first is Baal Red, and we're going to be applying this over the top of all of his armour. So with all that Baal Red applied, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Blood Angel's Red, and we're going to apply this over the top of his armour, over the top of all the Baal Red. This is going to be slightly different to how we do the troops, because they're a little bit darker, but these guys, well, this guy, we want to just be a little tiny bit brighter, and also just stand out a little bit from his troops. Not that he doesn't already do that on the Juggernaut, but trust me. With that Blood Angel's Red all applied, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Black Legion and we're going to apply this over, well, a lot of details. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to look for any of the kind of soft details in between the joints of the armour. Apply this over this like that. We're going to apply this over the top of his belt and over the top of the holster, but not the strap holding it on. Like that. We're going to apply this over the top of the maw. Like that. We're going to apply this over the top of any of the smooth cables that are running around. We're going to do this over the top of the hair plume, and we're going to do this over the top of the horns, but what we're going to do is we're going to blend out the horns. So I'll demonstrate that now. Sorry for the construction work going on. So we're going to take this all over the top of the horn, down to around about there. We're then going to wash the brush, and then we're going to go in there and just smooth out the transition. So with all of that Black Legion applied, there is a lot, what we're going to do now is we're going to take some Agrax Earthshade, and we're going to apply this over the top of the soft wrap, up here on the axe. We're going to apply this over the wrap around his top knot. We're going to apply this over the top of the little strap, holding on the holster. And we're going to apply this over the top of his skin. With that Agrax Earthshade applied, we then take some Reikland Fleshshade. We're going to apply this over the top of his skin, which we've already done with the Agrax. We just want to add a little bit of extra colour in there. He is quite pale. So with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Runelord Brass. I'm going to apply this over the top of all of his trim. As with all the World Eaters, there's rather a lot of this here. You just have the box art or the product photography in front of you. Just carefully make your way around the model, picking all of it out. So with all of that Runelord Brass applied, and there is rather a lot of it, what we're going to do now is we're going to take some thinned down Iron Warriors, and we're going to apply this over pretty much all of our remaining details, excluding the skulls. So with all that Iron Warriors applied, we've just got one last base coat to do, and that is going to be some Skeleton Horde. And we're going to apply this over the top of the skulls. So with that done, all of our base coats are now on. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a shade. And the shade we're going to add is Nuln Oil. And we're going to be applying this over the top of all of the black, all of the silver, and all of the brass. So with that Nuln Oil all applied, what we're then going to do is take some Agrax Earthshade and we're going to apply this over the top of the trim. And we don't need loads here, we're just adding a little bit of brown in there, a little bit of warmth. Just like that. So with that done, the Lord Invocatus is now what I would call a Warhipster battle ready. So that's part 3 of the video done. So what we're going to do now is move on to the part 4, the taking him to the next level. I'm going to do this by adding some highlights. Now the colour we're going to add first is Wild Rider Red. And we're using this to highlight all of the red. So with that Wild Rider Red all applied, we then take some Cadian Fleshtone and we add this to the sharpest points around the model. We're looking for corners of the red armour, any rivets. So with that done, all of the red armour is now finished. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the black. And the colour we're going to be using is Dawnstone. And we're going to be picking out all of the edges with this colour. So I'm just going to start up here on the horns. So with that Dawnstone all applied, we then take some Administratum Grey. We're going to apply that to the sharpest points on all the black. So with that done, all of the black is now finished. So what we're going to do is we're going to very quickly take a little bit of Dark Angel's Green and we're going to apply this over the top of the eye lenses. So with that Dark Angel's green applied, we then take a tiny amount of Gauss Blaster green and we use this to add a little line going across the middle of the eye lens, like that. So with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to take a roughly 2-to-1 mix of Flayed One Flesh and Slaanesh Grey, and we're going to use this over the top of the muscles. Just avoiding the recesses where both our shades are. And so with that now done, we're going to take Flayed One Flesh on its own. Now just a little highlight. Around the muscles. So with that now done, we've just got 2 main areas left to go. And well, the colour we're going to be using next is some thinned down Canoptek Alloy. We're going to be using this to highlight all of the brass. This is going to be quite time consuming, so just take your time, work your way around the model. And then once that's done, we shall return. So with that Canoptek Alloy applied to all of the brass, it's incredible just how much that elevates the model. What we're going to do now is we're going to apply our final highlight, which is going to be some thinned down Ironbreaker. I'm going to use this to highlight all of the silver. So with that done, our Lord Invocatus is now finished. However, there are a couple of little extra things that we can do. These are kind of optional extras. And these are mostly on the Juggernaut. So one of these things that we're going to do is we're going to take some Runelord Brass, and in these kind of little tiny gaps is we're going to apply the Runelord Brass over the top of the little line that's right in there. Just like that sort of thing. Similarly with the Runelord Brass, what we can also do is we can drop this inside any of the nicks and scrapes on the Juggernaut's armour. And so with that Runelord Brass applied to all of those areas, we then take Gryph-Hound Orange and we apply this over the top. Like that sort of thing. We'll just do this on the undercarriage. Because for the others we'll use a different colour. And so over the top of our nicks and scrapes, we then take Blood Angel's Red and we apply this over the top. And so with that done, we just have one last thing to do, and that's to take some Skrag Brown and a small dry brush, and we're just going to add little bits of rust by just dry brushing this on to certain sections. I just want to add a little bit of it here in the corner of the mouth, like that. I'm going to add a little bit of it to this section of chainmail. Same here. Add some just there. Add a little bit more to this corner. Just very gently dry brushing it in there and building it up. So with that rust applied, the last thing to do is the base. Now I'm going to do this in the same style as the rest of the World Eaters, but we do have a very large rock here, and the colour I'm going to be using for this rock is Ratling Grime. So once that Ratling Grime was fully applied, I did the rest of the basing scheme, as you can see in the Angron video that is already live, and the Lord Invocatus was finished. I think it's fantastic. As I've mentioned in a couple of times now on various different videos, I feel like he really does kind of act as a link between the size of the entire range. Angron, with his presence, Lord Invocatus really links him into the infantry, and it's just really, really subtle, but it looks really, really cool, and it just balances out the visual look. So I think he's amazing. If you enjoyed this video, you love the channel, and you want to support me further like these legends and bosses on the screen before you, you can do so. Head to patreon.com/warhipster or head to ko-fi.com/warhipster. Alternatively, you could become a YouTube member by heading to the channel page and clicking on the join button just here, just like these amazing, wonderful people have done. And if you really like this video, or you just want to shoot me some support, you can click on the thanks button just below this video. Don't forget to share it, like it, comment on it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And to make sure you stay up to date, don't forget to click the bell icon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Happy wargaming.